Hello everyone, I'm a broken robot. I think people really don't understand how powerful of an effect nostalgia can have on your perception of memory. My biggest case for this is people online claiming that 2017, 2018, and 2019 were the good old days, like they weren't still in recent memory. Sure, 2018 gave us big chungus, but besides that, I don't think there was anything too special about these years in specific. I believe that every few years people's perception changes, and they assume that just because they don't fully remember there being any bad parts, it must have been good, right? This mindset can be applied to things like TV shows, video games, and even brands. If you don't believe me, then just think about how many times some 45-year-old claimed that Thundercats was a great show with a groundbreaking story, and definitely not just a glorified LJN marketing technique to sell toys. You see what I mean? This mindset is found nowhere else more than that of people trying to claim that defunct businesses from their childhood that went to bankruptcy for a multitude of reasons were actually these great temples of excitement and bliss. If you've ever been on any Reddit post, there's always some millennial down in the comments who just watched Stranger Things boldly claiming that Circuit City should return. No, Blockbuster shouldn't return, and I'll tell you why it and a handful of other businesses that get grouped into this wave of blissful nostalgia need to be knocked off their pedestal. Let's just get right into it. PierOne Imports was a company that existed on thin ice for most of its existence. PierOne Imports was a popular American retail chain specializing in home furnishing and decor, offering a wide range of furniture, accessories, and decorative items. Founded in 1962, the company was known for its eccentric and often globally inspired product selection. By the time the 2000s had rolled around, PierOne Imports was known for its wacky and often nonsensical products that existed more as trinkets more so than functional furniture.
Yes, I'd like a $4,000 ping pong table that's shaped like Easter Island.
We have one right over there.
Okay. How about a telephone that's made of vintage phone book paper and doesn't make or receive phone calls or work in any way?
You mean like this one right here?
Right, but what if I wanted...
Sir, there's nothing you can possibly imagine that's strange or useless enough that we don't have it here at Anthropology.
PierOne aimed to provide customers with unique and stylish options for decorating their homes. The major obstacle for PierOne Imports was the difficulty in acquiring stock from foreign brands in large quantities. PierOne as a company prided that most of their valuable products were imported from exotic and far-off countries. Because of this challenge, profit margins were often small, and the declining brick-and-mortar furniture industry didn't help either. It faced challenges in adapting to changing consumer preferences and increased competition, ultimately leading to its bankruptcy and closure of all of its stores in 2020. Because PierOne Imports went bankrupt not that long ago, you'd assume that most people would have moved on and left the company behind as nothing more than some capitalist trivia. But never underestimate the power of unsatisfied housewives and bored middle-aged men when it comes to the useless trinkets that PierOne Imports sold. When the last PierOne closed its doors in early 2020, seemingly overnight there was an outpour of supporters who flocked to PierOne's then still active website, begging for the company to return, but it was obviously too late. Many individuals yearned for a personalized high-class establishment that had middle-class pricing. While alternative businesses like Home Goods and Hobby Lobby were able to fill the void for some unhappy yoga instructors, a loud minority of PierOne stans continued to beg online for the store to return, even if it would be financially and logistically impossible to reopen even a fraction of the closed branches, not to mention that the brand was already being liquidated by the end of 2020. Trust me, if you're really that desperate to get your hands on trinkets or wacky one-off items, go to your local thrift store. Businesses like PierOne Imports survived off impulse buying. You enjoyed shopping here because of the thrill of the hunt, not because you wanted to pay $49.95 for a chair that looks like a fist. Let the brick-and-mortar furniture industry die for the love of Robot God. Here's probably the most popular defunct business that we'll bring up on this list. How many times have you been online or just with a group of people and some quirked up lacrosse player or anxiety-ridden goth says, "They should bring back Blockbuster"? Thanks to things like Stranger Things and the USA's ever-increasing infatuation with the 1980s, Blockbuster has become topical once again. The discovery of a single surviving Blockbuster location in Blend, Oregon blew up online around mid-2021, and the floodgate was open for internet casuals boldly stating that they had the unique, one-of-a-kind opinion of wanting the return of a defunct video rental business that hadn't been popular since the early 2000s. Blockbuster as a company existed to fill a demand. With the rise of VHS during the 80s and the increasingly lowered price of home entertainment systems, It allowed consumers to rent films for a low price compared to outright buying the at the time expensive VHS home movies. Even when VHS tapes switched to DVDs for the first few years of the 2000s, Blockbuster managed to stay ahead of its competition due to a mix of pricing and continued convenience of not having to outright buy expensive DVDs for home use. Blockbuster, once a dominant force in the video rental industry, faced a significant decline in the mid-2000s due to its inability to adapt to the digital revolution in home entertainment systems. As the popularity of home-use DVDs and streaming services like Netflix grew, Blockbuster failed to embrace these emerging technologies effectively and chose to stick to what had worked in the past, leading to a decline in its customer base and overall revenue. A huge factor with Blockbuster's decline was its end of filling a demand as a business. When DVDs went from being $40 a movie to the $5 bargain bin, it made renting videos from Blockbuster not only financially pointless, but a huge inconvenience. This failure to evolve with the changing landscape ultimately resulted in Blockbuster's decline and eventual bankruptcy in 2010. Brother, if you're in the camp of people who wish that Blockbuster would return, no you don't. In the words of Scott the Woes,
Blockbuster, the movie rental store everybody acts like they'd love for it to come back, but wouldn't go to it more than once if it did.
Blockbuster as a concept was built on limited time. As technology and home media products evolved and, more importantly, lowered in value, Blockbuster would bit by bit lose its cultural relevance. To the people in the audience that might say, what about the personal aspect? Streaming services and the dirt cheap aspect of home media products has made Blockbuster no longer convenient, so even if you're some wannabe poser that thinks you'll meet a dreamy film bro at the video rental store, too bad, cause he's already at home watching Pulp Fiction on Netflix. With the rise of PC gaming culture and the stigma around personal computers, Twitch streamers and League of Legends players are doing everything in their power to edge out their friends and competition's PC specs for the simple notion of bragging rights. While I'm unsure why or exactly how this false image of Radio Shack has been able to be fostered in a group of internet users known for being fact-checkers and know-it-alls, I hate to say this, but Radio Shack was a discount electronics store, not a paradise for PC gamers. Radio Shack was an American retail chain that specialized in consumer electronics, including electronic components, audio equipment, batteries, and hobbyist electronic kits, as well as discount electronics in their later years. Founded in 1921 as quite literally a transistor Radio Shack, it gained popularity for providing a wide range of electronic parts, components, and other items that enthusiasts would need. Radio Shack profited heavily from the transistor radio craze of the 1970s and the do-it-yourself nature of early electronics. Over the years, Radio Shack evolved to offer a selection of consumer electronics and gadgets, including radios, computers, and cell phones. While Radio Shack did very well in the first half of the company's life, it struggled with the changing consumer preferences of the 1980s, increased competition among cell phone providers, and the financial challenges of the coming years. The final nail in the coffin came when the old big box computers of the late 90s were phased out for good. By eliminating the tinkerer and do-it-yourself nature of early computer culture, Radio Shack lost the bulk of their customer base during the mid-90s, a time that other electronic stores like Best Buy and FYE were on the rise. Radio Shack's business declined significantly in the 2000s and 2010s, and it faced a series of store closures before eventually ceasing most operations, except for a few hundred independently run holdouts. The reason why you as a consumer should be glad that Radio Shack is gone is the exact same reason that Radio Shack went away in the first place. In 2023, most people don't own a Macintosh or a shortwave radio, and besides the same discount electronics junk that you can find at Walmart and Target, the business has little to offer modern consumers. I don't mean to burst anyone's bubble, but if Radio Shack magically returned, it wouldn't be a PC gamer paradise. They'd probably just go back to selling the same discount electronics that they'd been pawning off since the 70s. You get points for dreaming, but don't let the rose tin of an old brand automatically make you assume that it was universally loved. Radio Shack went bankrupt for a reason after all. Now this next one is technically cheating, but I'm going to include it anyway. While Chuck E. Cheese, or its lesser-known spin-off Peter Piper's Pizza, has around 600 locations still operating in the United States, considering at one point Chuck E. Cheese was an international brand with over 1,000 locations operating in 25 different countries, it really makes you wonder what just went wrong. as even during the rapid decline of the brand, many teens and young adults still felt heavy nostalgia towards the business. Chuck E. Cheese is, or I guess I should say was, a popular American family entertainment and restaurant chain, primarily known for its unique combination of arcade games, animatronic shows, and pizza dining that revolutionized the concept of interactive dining. Founded in 1977, it offered a fun-filled environment where children and families could enjoy a wide range of video games, ticket redemption games, rides, and a play area while indulging in pizza and other snacks. The distinctive feature of Chuck E. Cheese is its anthropomorphic animatronic characters led by Chuck E. Cheese himself. While these animatronics were slowly phased out in the 90s in favor of traditional roaming manned characters, some locations continue to put on animatronic shows that I as a robot still find fascinating despite most of the animatronic characters being well over 30 years old. A combination of the 2008 recession and the rise of home video game consoles took a major toll on the company that some financial managers claim the corporate sector never truly recovered from. Bit by bit during the 2010s, despite multiple attempted rebrands, locations began to drop like flies, with most of their international branches being out of business before 2015 rolled around. While independent locations continue to operate in 2023, bit by bit, Charles Entertainment Cheese is going the way of the dinosaur. With the success of adult-themed entertainment restaurants like Dave & Buster's, many online and my own peers in my day-to-day life have begun to make the claim that they wish that a Chuck E. Cheese would reopen in their local area. And just let me tell you, as someone who has personally visited a Chuck E. Cheese within recent memory, no you don't. Locations are often unclean and workers are nowhere to be found when you need them due to budget cuts. The Galaga and Frogger machines that you remember from the 90s have been scrapped in favor of rigged and often predatory gimmick games that cost $1 to $2 only to punch out tickets in return for your money. It's a well-known fact that Chuck E. Cheese's ticket redemption system is rigged and a scam, but it was tolerated in the past thanks to a mix of traditional and ticket-based arcade machines. As Chuck E. Cheese grew more and more desperate to maintain their thin profit margins, older-style arcade games were phased out for proto-gambling, luck-based games that parents hate and most kids are too stupid to figure out anyway. Another key flaw of Chuck E. Cheese's deserved decline was their decrease in the quality of ingredients for their food items. While pizza and wings had always been a staple of the company for decades, the 2013 rebrand was a last-ditch attempt to appeal to the growing population of single mothers in the United States. Displaying Chuck E. Cheese as a healthy, homely eating environment where parents could relax while their kids played in a safe, monitored environment. This rebrand not only ruined the quality of available menu items, but the new additional items were room temperature Caesar salads and poorly made chicken wraps that didn't quite impress the market that they were trying to appeal to in the first place. Chuck E. Cheese might have been cool in the 80s and had its moment in the sun, but modern Chuck E. Cheese chains are overpriced and unappealing for adults and children alike. If you as an adult tried to visit a Chuck E. Cheese today, while I hate to say it, you'd probably be horribly underwhelmed. You'd buy a pizza that's on par with school cafeteria quality, you'd spend $20 to $40 playing arcade games just to have enough tickets for 5 army men and a Tootsie Roll, and when it's all said and done, you've probably contracted a skin infection from using the arcade machines in the first place. And with that being said, those are 4 businesses that are looked at with rose-tinted glasses, but I personally believe shouldn't have made it to the 2000s in the first place. What do you guys think? Are there any other defunct businesses that people claim they wish would return that you personally believed are only fueled by nostalgia? Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss my future video essays, game reviews, and other videos on whatever topic of the week has piqued my interest. I hope you all have a great day, go out and do something fun today, and stay cool.